Something strange was happening in Midgard. The farmers were expecting a bountiful harvest. Then, overnight, a deadly frost killed all their crops. The rivers froze solid. The sun grew weaker. At first, people thought it was just a harsh winter. They were wrong. This wasn't just any winter. This was a sign that something far worse was coming. The gods had protected humans for centuries, but even they spoke of a time when their power would not be enough. And that time, Ragnarok, was finally here. Welcome to Tales of a Bard. Today we'll be covering all the events that happened during Ragnarok, which was the apocalypse for the Norse people. I want you to picture this. You're living in Midgard, so the land of the humans. Life here is not easy, but people generally have been okay because of the gods. For generations, humans have honored the gods with sacrifices, knowing that as long as they show respect, the gods will watch over them. These people are tough. They're used to brutal winters, always preparing for the worst. But even the strongest warriors whisper about a time when the gods won't be able to protect them anymore. A time when everything will fall apart. A time called Ragnarok. It started with a chill in the air. Summer was ending now, and farmers were expecting a very bountiful harvest. But then out of nowhere, a cold wind rolled in, killing the crops everywhere. Trees would shed their leaves way too early, and people knew that this was a sign that something bigger was about to come. Winter arrived fast, too fast, and it wasn't normal. It was Fimbulvetur, the Great Winter. 3 winters back to back, no summers in between. The rivers froze solid, the ground turned to ice, and the sun seemed weaker every day. People huddled together in their homes. Their livestock was barely surviving at this point. The nights were stretching longer and longer, and some people even began to wonder, will the sun ever rise again? The people of Midgard had fought through 3 never-ending winters, but now their food was gone. At first, they tried to ration what little they had, but hunger does strange things to a person. They started eating their egg-laying chickens, and then their dogs and even their cats.
They're eating the dogs, the people that came in. They're eating the cats. They're eating...
Really sorry, I just had to put that there. But anyway, soon after that, they started turning on each other. Those who dared to go hunting in the frozen wastelands never came back. Brothers started turning against brother. Sons defied their fathers. Every village became a battlefield. Blood soaked the snow, as war axes never had a chance to dry. It was chaos everywhere. Up in Asgard, the gods watched in grim silence. These were the signs, the proof that the final battle was near. Then came the wolves. And not just any wolves. These were massive wolves. These were the offspring of Fenrir, Skol and Hati. For an eternity, they had raced through the sky, chasing their prey, the sun and the moon. For ages, Sol and Mani, the deities who carried the celestial bodies, had managed to outrun them. But no one can run forever. The wolves caught them, and when they did, they swallowed them whole. Darkness swallowed the world. The cold was even more brutal than before. And then, the earth began to shake. The great world tree, Yggdrasil, trembled. The mountains split open. Massive earthquakes rocked the land. And then, one final deafening snap. The chains that held Fenrir, the mightiest of the wolves, broke apart. The beast was out, and he was out for revenge. As the ground quaked, another horror was set free. Jörmungandr, the world serpent, thrashed in the oceans, sending towering waves crashing into the shores of Midgard. The sea itself rose in anger, swallowing entire lands. The final battle wasn't coming anymore. It was here. The massive waves kept coming. Tsunamis just swept over the land, killing everything. Animals, people, and if that wasn't bad enough, Jörmungandr would release its deadliest weapon, his venom. The poison spread through the ocean, contaminating everything. From the tiniest plankton to the largest whales, every living thing in the water died. The sea became a graveyard. Meanwhile, far away in the depths of his prison, Loki, the trickster god, began to awake. Just like his son Fenrir, Loki would be set free from his eternal torment, and he had one thought in his mind: revenge. Without hesitation, he made his way to Helheim, the land of the dead. This was where the souls of the dishonorable, cowards, traitors, and criminals ended up, and its ruler, Hel, Loki's own daughter, was waiting. When she saw her father, she smiled and also handed him the greatest weapon that he could ask for: an army of the dead. These were not ordinary soldiers. These were the corpses of those who had died in disgrace, all of the warriors who had never known glory. But now was their chance to become part of something historic, of something memorable. Deep beneath the earth, another force was preparing to rise. Nidhogg, the dragon who had spent eternity gnawing at the roots of Yggdrasil, tore open a massive tunnel. Through this dark passage, Hel's army began its march to Midgard. But they were not the only ones coming. To the south, fire blazed across the land. The army of Muspelheim had begun its march. Giants wreathed in flame led by Surtur the Black. Everything in their path burned. Forests turned to ash, rivers boiled. The sky itself seemed to glow red from the heat. And to the north, the frost giants of Jotunheim were building ships made out of fingernails from the dead. And yes, you heard that right. Human fingernails. Their destination? Vigrid, the battlefield where the final war would be fought. And back in Asgard, Heimdall, the ever-watchful guardian of the gods, stood at his post. For centuries, he had waited for the moment when the end of the world would begin. And now, there was no doubt. He raised Gjallarhorn, the mighty horn of the gods, and blew. The sound was completely deafening, and it echoed across the entire universe. Every god, every warrior, every living being heard it. There was no stopping it now. Ragnarok had begun. This was it, the moment that everyone had been waiting for. The fate that Odin had witnessed at Mimir's well was finally here. The end of the Aesir gods. Heimdall's horn had sounded across the entire realms, announcing the final battle. The forces of chaos led by Loki himself were on the move, and they had one purpose: to bring down the Aesir gods, once and for all. But Asgard wasn't going down without a fight. For thousands of years, the warriors of Valhalla had waited for this moment. They were the bravest of the brave, the fallen heroes, those who had died in battle and were carried by Valkyries to Odin's great hall. Now at last, the gates of Valhalla swung open, and they marched forward, weapons in hand, ready to fight once more. The gods themselves joined them. Every god who could wield a weapon joined the ranks and started to fight. Meanwhile, the giants of Muspelheim launched a brutal assault on the gates of Asgard. The Bifrost Bridge shattered beneath their charge, sending a large portion of the army to the icy waters. The gods watched as many giants drowned, but even they knew that this was not really a victory, because their fate wasn't to hide behind Asgard's walls. Their fate was to face the darkness head-on. Odin, leading the charge with his mighty 8-legged steed, gave the order to attack. The armies of Asgard charged forward. The ground shook as warriors and monsters collided in an explosion of steel and fury. Thor, the mightiest of all the gods, roared into battle. The frost giants smashed into Odin's ranks, and their weapons, made of ice, sliced through Asgardian steel like it was butter. Loki, at the head of Hel's undead army, drove the legions of the dishonored dead into battle. This was war in its purest form. Tyr, the one-handed god of war, faced Garm, the monstrous wolf who guarded the gates of Hel. The battle was savage. Tyr sank his sword deep into the beast's heart, but as Garm fell, he dragged Tyr down with him. Then, the earth shook again. From the depths of the ocean, Jörmungandr, the world serpent, rose. His body coiled around the battlefield, his venomous breath spilling over the warriors. As guardian fighters collapsed where they stood, their lungs completely collapsed because of the venom. For ages, Thor had known that this fight would come. His battle with Jörmungandr was fated, written into the very bones of the world. The serpent struck first, its massive jaws lunging at Thor. The god of thunder dodged, spinning his hammer in his hands. He struck back, 1, 2, 3 devastating blows. The serpent reeled, its massive body slamming into the earth. But the fight wasn't over. The serpent lashed out, trying to swallow the god of thunder whole. Thor at this point dodged again, and he unleashed his most terrible strike. Mjolnir smashed into the serpent's skull. Thor was the victor, but that victory came at a cost, because with that final blow, Thor had shattered the serpent's venomous sacs. A cloud of pure poison exploded into the air, engulfing Thor. The god of thunder staggered, his breath ragged. The poison from Jörmungandr, the fallen serpent, coursed through his veins, burning like fire. He dropped to his knees, and then the god of thunder was finally dead. The battlefield at this point went completely silent. Without Thor, the gods struggled to hold back the endless tides of chaos. That's when Fenrir, the giant wolf, son of Loki, the beast destined to bring ruin, broke loose. He tore through everything in his path. Warriors, gods, it didn't matter. He devoured anyone who dared stand against him. But Fenrir wasn't here for just anyone. He was here for Odin. The Allfather, king of Asgard, had always known this moment would come. He was destined to face Fenrir, and he wouldn't run from fate. At this point, the Allfather simply grabbed his spear and charged forward. Sadly, it wasn't enough. Fenrir lunged, his massive jaws gaping wide, and Odin, the wisest and most powerful of the gods, was swallowed whole. A hush fell over the battlefield. Fenrir at this point simply threw his head back and howled, kind of like mocking the gods. They were now leaderless. The battle was almost won. But then, Vidar stepped forward. Vidar, son of Odin, a god of vengeance and silence. He didn't speak. He didn't hesitate. He simply acted. As Fenrir turned, jaw still dripping with blood, Vidar struck. Vidar planted one foot firmly on Fenrir's lower jaw, and then with both hands he grabbed the upper jaw and started to push. And then, a sickening crack. Vidar tore Fenrir's mouth open, ripping his entire jaw in half. The giant wolf, the devourer of Odin, was dead. But Ragnarok wasn't over, and Loki watched it all. His lips curled into a smile. Even with Fenrir gone, chaos was winning. The gods were falling, one by one. He didn't care if he survived. He only cared about watching Asgard burn. It was at this moment that Heimdall charged against Loki. The guardian of the Bifrost, the watchman of the gods, met Loki head on. The two clashed, weapons ringing like thunder, blow after blow. The fight was perfectly matched, a deadly dance of skill and precision. They kept it like this for a while, until both of them struck at the exact moment, and both fell to the ground. Loki, the trickster, the betrayer, the mastermind of Ragnarok, was now dead. Then, Surtur raised his flaming sword, and with a single swing, fire swept across the world. Asgard, the great kingdom of the gods, burned. Their palaces crumbled, their golden walls melting into rivers of flame. The sky turned black, the oceans rose, and the entire world was swallowed by fire and flood. And just like that, it was over. The age of the gods had finally ended. But from the ashes of destruction, life returned. As the floodwaters receded, the land that was burned and broken became green again. And in that new world, a hidden secret was revealed. Inside Yggdrasil, the Tree of Life, two humans emerged, secretly hidden away by the gods to ensure that they would restart civilization. And so life began again. A new sun rose in the sky, shining where the old one had been swallowed. The surviving gods gathered in a new kingdom. Odin's sons Vidar and Vali were there. Thor's children Magni and Modi now held their father's mighty hammer. And then Baldur returned. The beloved god of light, once lost to the underworld, now stood among them. He and Hodur, his brother, took their places in the new world. They started speaking about the past and about the mistakes that had led to Ragnarok. And as they spoke, they found something. The golden chess pieces that the gods had once used to play their games in Asgard. And so, just like their ancestors, they began a new game. Because this was how the cycle worked. An old world ends, a new one begins, and the story starts all over again. Thank you so much for joining me for today's tale. If you had fun, learned anything new today, please consider subscribing to the channel, also liking the video, sharing the video, commenting down below. All of that really means the world to me, and it makes a huge difference in pushing out my channel through the YouTube's algorithm. Also, don't go away without watching one of these 2 videos up here. Until the next tale, farewell, and may the gods smile upon you.